Short fatties are all the rage right now. Being a surfer, the whole surf thing is really fun to see. All the, going from the industry doing almost everything twin to now going all directional, or adding a lot of directional rides is great. I don't like anything in excess. I'd hate to see, like, for example, a company go from all twins to all directionals and all short fatties. But I think variety is all about the spice of life and diversity. And I'd love to see companies add boards like these, keep the twins, and just have a wide variety of options. Because even though I come from a surfing background in the early days, I still love a good twin. And so, and I love boards of all kinds. This is why I do what I do. I'm a gear whore, and I'm not ashamed of that. And this is great, to see this in Rossi's line, because they really didn't have like a short fatty. And when I first saw this, I wasn't sure, because it's a 45, and it's got a super wide nose and a pretty tapered tail. But if you look at this side cut, it seems like it's just, for some reason, it doesn't seem on snow to feel as tapered as it does. It's definitely off the back foot. It's definitely something to surf snow with. But for some reason, it just, you don't feel, I don't know what the specs are, but it looks like there is a drastic taper from tip to tail. And you just don't feel that as much on snow. And you can kind of see that in the review. Now, let me see if I can, I don't think I have all the lights are pointing this way. But I wish I had like a flashlight. But you can see there are, like, along here, it has the same light wave technology that they have in the Diva and the One MagTech, which is great. Now, I'm not sure of the camber profile, but you can see there is minimal rocker off the tail, which is fine, because you have a nice camber from basically just past the front insert all the way to the back. And you can kind of see there's a nice pop to it, and there's a decent camber for such a short, wide fatty. And I'm so glad they did that. A lot of companies, when they go with their powder board, they make it just for powder, and that can kind of suck sometimes, because let's face it, if you're a resort rider, which this is mainly for, if you're a guy going on a heli trip, you're going to be fine every time. But if you're a resort rider like most of us, and like most of the time you ride on a powder day, sometimes you ride in a storm one day and it's just almost all powder. But then the next day it's a bluebird day, and you have to lap the bottom runs with a bunch of leftovers and that have been groomed, and kind of wait for the top to open up. Wait for them to do their avalanche control and all that stuff. And so you'll have no fun when they do rocker or flat to rocker on those groomer days, while you're kind of waiting for the top to pop, or waiting for chairs to open that aren't opened. You've got mainly leftovers. So this camber, I took it out in a couple different conditions. Never really got that super floaty powder day. We're just only got a little bit of snow. But I took this thing out, and it was super fun on groomers. It really takes a surfy approach to groomers, but you can lay out a hard carve, and you can butter off the tail without it just like rising up and putting you on your ass. You would think such a short tail would do that, but it didn't. And then, I mean, I've ridden a lot of short fatties in powder, so I gotta say, with this rocker and this just low profile floaty nose and this width, the volume of this 145 in length is much, much larger. I mean, you're talking like This feels like it would float better than my 163 XV Magtech. It just feels like it wouldn't quite sit on top of the snow because of this taper. But man, the vast majority of this board, like this much of the board, it would be like more like this. And it just would be unsinkable. And it's pretty quick for how wide it is. I don't know exactly the specs on the waist width here, but I would imagine it's very wide. And when I put the binding on, it was like, when I put the binding on this, it was like, it ended like right here. And like even, like I came home and even somebody who doesn't snowboard much walked into my office and saw it here and she's like, that's really wide compared to the other ones. So, you know, it makes sense. So all in all, I think they did a great job with the Sushi, and it's a really fun powder board. It's something I actually wouldn't mind owning. It's, you know, I'm not sure. I have to, you know, spend more time on this, and I'm not sure if it will unseat a favorite or make its way into the favorites group, but it's definitely very recommendable. It's just, you know, there's no mag or anything like that. It's just their amp tech technology, their camber tech. But let's talk about now, like the setback, the reference stance, that kind of thing. So it says here, the reference stance is 22, which is a really good reference stance. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Yeah, 22, 56 centimeters, 22 inches. But if you want to set it all the way back, you're looking at 22 again. And that's a good way. You know, I'd be more at 23, but let's just say for you guys, most people, 22 would be a good stance width. So let's just see how far back on board you're getting for this little short guy. You're looking at about 23 3/4. And this isn't fair because it's kind of got a swallowtail, but we'll go from the middle because it will sink a little bit. Holy fuck. You're looking at 8 1/4. And what did we say? 23 3/4. Get your calculators. Wow, that is so far back. There is so much more nose than there is tail. I mean, this is one of those great boards. It's definitely a powder board by a long shot first, but you know, it's a good, fun way to ride groomers second, and I had a really good time with this. You know, the bass it just feels like a nice centered bass to me. You know, I'm not sure, but it kept its speed really well, and it seemed waxed nicely before I got it. But what I love is it's just clear, and everything underneath is the graphics are way underneath the bass, so there's no die cut, and it's easier to repair, especially if you have a P-Tex gun. If you want to keep the bass pretty, you can get clear P-Tex and get a P-Tex gun, so when you know, take a lighter to it, it burns and puts black marks into the clear, and that can kind of suck. So if you get a good P-Tex gun, because you're going to be riding off piste a lot, I found this to be a very fun ride, and I think it could work for a lot of people looking to get a you know, kind of like a quiver. This is definitely a quiver board. There are very few I would recommend this as a daily driver for, but there are some that it could really work for, especially those who come from, like if you grew up surfing a fish, you know, like a twin fin fish, this might work for you. But if you're like, even if you're a surfer who likes like a performance shortboard, you kind of ride all kinds of surfboards too, this is just one to have in the quiver, and it's a great board. So well done on this, Rossi. When I first saw this, I just didn't think I'd like it on snow. After getting it on snow, I liked it better than a lot more, than a lot of surf shapes that I tried that are much higher in price.